We'll go ahead and get started so we can run through it. Yes, this is scheduled till 1 o'clock. Yes, it probably will take most of that. I'm not going to say exact. Yes, there is a graded assignment as a part of the class. Okay? So we're going to kind of work through it and move around a little bit and keep y'all awake. Yes, there is some redundancy in this. Trying to cut that out. Okay? So when I say, have y'all heard all this? And y'all say yes. If we get to a topic, then I'm going to move on. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. That way we move on through, okay? Because we're kind of reworking this particular lecture a little bit. So we're talking about health in the global community. And I know a lot of what y'all talked about so far this semester, some of it's been focused on the U.S., right? So now we're going to talk about how it impacts all of us. If you notice, you've got the slides that have speaker notes. Before anybody asks, do I need to know what's in the speaker notes? What do you think?
No.
So here's the deal. If you don't understand the slide in my conversation when you go to study for the test, then maybe you need to read the speaker notes.
I can't open the speaker notes. You need to download.
Download the whole thing.
You need to download the file.
We'll look at it at a break, okay? Let me look at it with you at a break. All right, so, I mean, that's just a benefit because that's the one that got loaded, so you got the speaker notes. Okay, so take advantage of them if you want to. A lot of it's context, okay? Y'all did great on the last exam, so you should know now by my lecture style, for the most part as a class, y'all did excellent, that I'm gonna try to cover content that is high level that you should see in the exam, right? Your book goes in a lot more detail. Do you need to read your book? No. Yes. Yes, it's a reference. It's there for you to help explain particularly content that you don't understand. Yes, I heard my name. Was it you, Molly? Who said my name? Anybody have a question? Okay. I'm just making sure there's not a question yet. All right, helping the global community. That's what we're talking about, okay? So, you know, y'all are the generation that gets this, probably more so than, certainly more so than my generation and some in between, because you have been raised with the technology that made the internet, that made the world open to all of us, information open to all of us, and took the big load and brought it down to size. So you have access to so much awareness of what's happening. In addition to the internet, what also exploded the capabilities of understanding and appreciation global health. Certainly technology from the internet did. Other things that influenced it. Y'all, it'll be a lot more fun if we talk. Go think about your grandma and grandpa. How did they travel? Yes, air travel, absolutely. Just the capability of getting places within a couple of hours, right? That was not a routine for many in the early part of this century, the previous century, or the one that we will before this, right? So, you know, that we stayed home. Even in World War II, not 100 years ago, information came back to the United States. How? Through old school, you know, Morse code and telegraphs and letters that took, you know, weeks and weeks and weeks to get here. So this explosion of technology and travel systems and just the capability of being aware of what's happening in the world and how that influences has skyrocketed the need for us to be aware of and understand what happens with the term globalization. Okay, so what does that term mean? Globalization.
Anywhere in the world.
The process of increasing social and economic dependence and integration. So we are much more dependent on each other, country to country, and integration of our cultures, our values, our norms throughout the world, right? And all of these things create the term in the world called globalization. So you live in a globalized society now. All right, that influences health as well, okay? The overall goal for health in the global community, pretty much all countries, all cultures agree. The highest goal is happiness and well-being of its citizens. Okay, and y'all probably have already explored the term well-being. Okay, so you understand what I mean by that. We don't have to spend a lot of time on that. And so human health very much is creates a common goal from country to country. However, is the healthcare system organized the same from country to country?
No.
No. So while we have sort of a common goals and all can agree with what we want for our citizens, we don't go about it all the same way as far as creating this happiness and health and well-being within this society, okay? All right, so human health is influenced by our life, and we measure that in lots of different ways, and there are a lot of different organizations. I'm going to touch on a few. You should know by now I'm not big into you remembering history, but it gives you context to understand where we were and where we're going, particularly as you talk to individual families and clients and you have to take in their perspective of things. So, but there are a few that are key that couldn't lecture on this without talking about. Okay, so quickly, let's talk about that. We talk about this term, global burden of disease. And there are 18 components in which we measure our global burden of disease. Okay? So we have this common goal from country to country, health and well-being for our citizens. Yet we have all these countries that are different, with different cultures, different norms, different values about what's important. They do, however, like I said, have 18 characteristics they look at nationally or internationally to decide whether or not we are creating burden on our culture and on our people with the decisions that are made from a political perspective, okay? So what are those 18 burdens? They're all interrelated. And it's everything from social norms, diet, right? It's also income and the capability. It's access to care, access to food, access to water, access to all of those environmental things that we talked about. So it's really great that this lecture comes after your environmental lecture. We don't have to repeat all that, right? Because we share, guess what? One earth together, right? So we're all on this world together and we're measuring these things. So what does that report look like? This is an old one and I pulled up the most current one. But I have to remember how to get to it. Let's see what it's saying today. Way up here. All right. So the last report on the global burden of disease was reported for the year 2023. They don't look at these 18 factors every year. They study them and they put this report out about every third year. Came out in 2024. But I pulled up this page. If you're all into this, you can go and read about it. But it talks about globally, what are the issues and what are the changes in the last 10 years internationally about what's influencing health and well-being. And what do you think? So half of the top 10 leading causes of early death and disability are what? Non-communicable diseases. Give me an example, Malik.
Diseases that don't transfer, basically, like heart disease.
They're not infectious.
Cancer.
There you go. Cancers, high blood pressure, heart disease, okay? So almost half of those, yet today we're gonna spend a lot of time talking about your communicable diseases, okay? But I don't want you to lose sight that all the other lectures you get in med-surg around cancers and blood pressures, those are global diseases as well, in different relationships and ratios, all right? In the last 10 years before this study, there was a sharp increase in healthy years lost due to diabetes, anxiety, and depressive disorders, okay? And health loss from high blood sugar, i.e. diabetes, and high body mass index. Obesity is rising. There are many others that are dropping. So while we've made some good gains internationally in some of these non-communicable disease processes, diabetes and obesity, or should I say it the other way, obesity, because it frequently leads to the diabetes, is on the rise, okay? And that's a change from the slide you have. So I'm not gonna test you on this, okay? But I wanted you to see when I saw there was a new report out there, I said, ooh, let me at least be sure they see that. So there's been some gains made internationally, okay? And we look at that, and there's a process by which we look at those things. Who looks at them? What do you know about what's happening internationally? Who do you think looks at these? Who's the organizations that look at these? The WHO, woo. The World Health Organization. Okay, losing a lot of credibility along the world, and that had already started to happen, but you saw an even greater change of credibility with WHO during the COVID. You guys, I'm not gonna lecture a lot about COVID, we'll touch on it, but it is the pandemic of your generation, right? So you lived it, you should know about it, all right? So World Health Organization still exists. It's membership from around international countries. They all, regardless of the size of the country, they all get the same vote, right, into what's good and what's bad. It has become a focus that's more political than it is on the goal of health and well-being for our planet, for the people of our planet, okay? All right, some of the factors that influence, let me get you back on slide. This international health, are all countries the same size? I just told you no. Do they all share the same population? No. Do they all share the same topography? No. So you get variation in density, cities, numbers of cities, where large folks live and a lot of folks live. For example, we know that in the last statistics, more than 50% of our population is where? It's in China. China's huge, it's a big country. But you think about China, India, US, Indonesia, those 4 countries making up more than half the people of the world. So there's some pretty rural places out there, right? Okay. So 30% of those are children and 8% are over 60. I'm not asking you to quote that statistic. It has probably increased by now. Here's the point. It's the distribution. A lot of people are made up of the world global stage by 4 countries, yet every country has the same vote on priorities. So you see how it's difficult within the WHO and other. UNICEF is another organization. United Nations Fund is the UNICEF Fund. Another that looks at health for the world, another organization. Again, many of these have become politicized. All right, based on the last data I found, updating for y'all in 2021, there is a set of criteria. We talked about the burden of disease has 18. UNICEF has a different set of criteria. WHO have another set of criteria. So that's why we're not memorizing what criteria makes you healthy, makes the healthiest country. But the group that does the conglomeration and declares the healthiest countries, the last published date is 2021. Who has the healthiest country? No, far from it. You would think it would, I thought it would too.
Turkey?
Ma'am?
Somewhere down in South America.
No.
Nowhere.
I know you, but you do, you think about.
America.
No, you know it's not America.
Turkey?
I was surprised it's Singapore. Wow, the index that they report this, I was shocked too. This is 2021. So this is the latest published. I looked at it this week and that was the last one out there. So I thought, God, Singapore, they've never been on the list. The old one was Spain too.
I can see that.
Yeah, I could too, the way
I
they
can see
eat.
Spain.
All right, so it's a 0 to 100 scale, okay? That makes up this. So Singapore is 95.3, Japan 95.1, South Korea 94, Taiwan 94, and then coming in fifth was Israel at 94. Then you get from 5 to 10, you get all those Nordic countries. Denmark, Sweden, Finland.
So we just not.
We on down. We on
I already knew we
down.
wasn't gonna be a good baby.
But, y'all, we've already learned, hadn't we? We're not very healthy focused on it. So this one's old. All right. This is all background. All right. You learned it last lecture with me. The environment creates stressors on the healthcare system, doesn't it? Okay? So the environmental influences have a heavy burden on global disease, okay? And we've discussed this, right? All right, so we talked about it. Let's talk about who are the healthiest states in the U.S.
California?
Probably a very small one.
The last data that I'm quoting is 23. California was mentioned, but that's not the answer.
Oregon?
Oregon, you're in the right region.
Idaho?
Utah,
Oh, Utah.
you can see that, can't you? Utah, Minnesota, then
I
California,
love Minnesota.
Massachusetts, and then Colorado.
See, I said I was gonna be in Colorado.
Guess where Georgia was?
At the bottom, because we like chicken.
No, we only have 50.
Oh.
28.
59.
Sorry, what is your question?
Where Georgia ranked in the healthiest states?
It is.
29.
Who was at the bottom?
It's actually 28.
No.
Significantly better than most of the southern
So what's
states.
this? What's New York?
I think it's
New
Alabama.
York can't be bad.
Ooh.
Damn, Alabama.
Mississippi or Alabama? Oh, excuse me, it was West Virginia.
Wow.
The last five are Tennessee, Arkansas, Florida, Kentucky, Mississippi, and West Virginia was 50.
Where is Texas?
I don't know, I didn't write them all.
Where is Texas?
Just healthiest states in America.
I mean, we used to look at Bourbon Street.
So again, 2023, context to understand, right? If you hadn't figured it out by this class yet, you don't necessarily live in a healthy arena that is wellness focused. We're disease focused in America, right? All right, so what influences all of this? All right, all the things we've been talking about all semester long. Environment, there are all kinds of patterns of disease and health that we should talk about. And we want to build a little bit on a few topics around environmental health that I just want to bring back out. I know we had that lecture. But one of the newest fields that's coming out now is something called biomonitoring, okay? You may have read about it. I don't know how much we really talked about it. We might have just mentioned it. So biomonitoring is the new environmental health buzzword. And it's focusing on measuring chemicals within the human biological samples, okay? So example is lead, and I know we talked a lot about lead. We actually used an example about lead, right? So as we treat our Mother Earth, good or bad, the byproducts of what we do are increasingly causing harm to our health, okay? And the way we go about testing that, managing that, is the science of biomonitoring, okay? So we talk about these global influences that have a lot on us. We also know that not only the exposure to chemicals create harm, but the chemicals change, right, through the course of time. They take on properties, they travel through the ground soil. We talked about that whole environmental cycle and all of that. And we know that then throughout the life cycle of that chemical, as compared to the life cycle of a human, is significantly greater, right? So they can cause harm in multiple points, not just an initial influence like with a chemical, but over time, it's cumulative. And through passing of generations as well, right? So there's a concept called, so let's think about that. So that example of it changes over time. COVID's a perfect example. Is the COVID of 2019, 2020 the same as the COVID you're getting your infectious vaccines against today? No. So biologically, chemically things change, but also biologically, right? Those viruses, bacteria, MRSA being another example. I'm of the generation where MRSA did not exist. You overtreated with antibiotics, that bacteria changed, created resistance to many antibiotics. Okay, so those are the examples of that principle that I'm talking about, of it changing over time. Arsenic would be an example, right? Not all, there's naturally arsenic in your body or naturally in the air. It's a natural occurring compound. However, with time, it builds up, has a long life, and it stays within the body up to and can include something called arsenic poisoning, right? All right, so understanding that concept of biomonitoring from a chemical review perspective and understanding the ever-changing environmental influences in humans over a period of time is an important concept for you to understand, okay? A third concept to remember is called the precautionary principle. So when you get threats of severe or irreversible damage, then the lack of scientific certainty will not be the reason for postponing things. So COVID is the example that, again, to use. When we first heard about COVID across the world, and we learned that it had made its way to America in early 2020, did we wait to put measures in place in order to be sure people were not exposed? No. There was so much death so quickly with that particular strand that we immediately put, and the one I remember because I was working in clinical practice then, was mask. For all my years you learn what masks work for and what they don't work for. And I was at work on an LTAC, and I'll never forget, another seasoned, as we like to call ourselves, nurse looked at me and said, "Why are we putting masks on? We've proven this doesn't work." But it was something to do. And all of a sudden, masks went on everybody. And what happened? Well, we've learned that now. It somewhat created a barrier, but there's jury's out on whether it really worked. We put them on anyway. It was precautionary. It was an example of the precautionary principle. We got to do something. We're not going to wait till science proved it worked or not. We're going to do it because it's something to do. Guess what? We ran out of masks, right? Just an example, but that concept of not waiting until you have scientific proof, because the cost of waiting is greater than any impact doing it early would have. It wasn't gonna harm anybody to wear a mask, but it sure might have killed more people if we didn't. All right, y'all got the concept, that concept? Okay. So those are three concepts that you do need to understand as it comes to global disease treatments and how we manage them in the world. All right, so I've already mentioned a couple of these. I'm not going to lecture on these. I think you hear enough about them. You certainly know about the CDC, and we're going to refer to it a couple times because in America, the CDC is where the majority of our statistics and data comes from. Yes, it took a huge hit on credibility also through COVID and has since continued, but it is still the organization of guidance for the United States and for many other countries in the world as well. Okay? A few international organizations. History. If you like history, here you go. Go ahead and look at it. All this goes back before the 2000 and how we came about coming together to say we're going to work together as a world to impact our health. All right, these were their goals, the initial goals, and then they've been updated. Do take a minute to look at these. These were targeted date initially of 2015. 2015 came and went, and what happened? Had we reached the goals?
Absolutely.
No, so they've been updated multiple times. Guess what the new goal is? 2030. Same goals. Have we reached them? Probably not. Some, we've made progress, right? We've made some progress. All right. So when we think about healthcare and we think about these goals, we talked about the fact that people are not all the same in the world. We have common goal, health and well-being for all. We have many cultures. We have the subdivision of goals we're going to work on. But we also don't share something else that influences this. We have culture, we have diet, we have norms and values, but we also have healthcare systems that are different, okay? So you go from governmental controlled healthcare in some countries to free market systems in others. And it's everything on the spectrum. What does America have?
Too expensive.
Definitely, you know how I feel about that. All right, are we government controlled at 100% of our health care? No. Do we have a pure free market system? No. So we have somewhat of a variance. We lean more to a free market than we do governmental control, okay? So that also, the ability to get health care when you need it in all of these countries is influenced as well by resources of insurance or whatever, whoever's paying the bill. Okay? Again, a lesson you should have already learned. All right? There was one major act that's been the newest that influences you the most. It's not historical, it's in the news every day now that you need to know. What was it? 2010. I think you said it. Yeah, it's Obamacare. The Patient Affordability Act, okay? That initially went into place in 2010. It's the Patient Protection and Affordability Care Act is exactly what it's called. And it's referred to as Obamacare. And there have been variations of it, and it is the reason our government is shut down today. Okay? Regardless of how you feel about that, which side of the aisle, we are shut down over the desire to or not to have some reforms to that. Okay? So it does, money does influence the quality of care and the value and the availability of care. All right. In addition to these governmental agencies, there is something called non-governmental agencies. Okay, NGOs, these historically are a few. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has one focus. They focus on poverty and increased health systems of care in countries. And then the Carter Center, which is right up the road, housed in Atlanta, their focus is several things, but improvement of health worldwide is one of their three agendas. And the benchmarks of everything y'all talk about is a set of national goals called what? What are your benchmarks that this class is constantly comparing to? Yeah, 2030, there's a set coming. You're being measured now. Healthy people. Those national Healthy People 2030 goals and outcomes. Okay? Many other countries have adopted those as well. All right, so this would be your role as the community health nurse. It's usually longitudinal in nature, not as much about direct application unless you do mission work. You know, and a lot of you, how many of y'all have done mission work where you've actually delivered it? There usually is in every group. So you've actually gone out and been a direct caregiver. But many times it's looking at it from the long haul and looking at it statistically and putting programs and systems in place that impact whatever organization and whatever you're working for. So research-based. All right, that is what I call the historical background and context for this class, okay? Now, let's look a little bit. While we said almost 50% is non-communicable, creating death and or morbidity. Everybody comfortable with the term morbidity? Okay. In the world, we've kind of talked about where we are with that. We're going to focus a little bit on communicable and communicable diseases that influence global health. All right, we're heading into some infection control principles, okay? Now, you've already had epidemiology. Everybody did great on that test, didn't they? Y'all remember it? You got it? I can skip this whole 30 minutes.
What?
I'm not. So let's talk through it if you feel really good about it. For those that maybe missed a few things, okay? We'll see. What does the term multi-causation mean? Multi-causation.
Exactly what it's called.
That's for two, good job. Okay, infectious agent alone, just whatever the bug is not sufficient enough to cause the disease, okay? Got to be some other things in place. It has to be transmitted, right? And guess what else it has to have? The host, right? All right, so good, you're proving me you do know it. That's awesome. What about the spectrum of infection?
What that means. That's what you know.
What is the spectrum of infection?
How fast is just spread.
Okay, so does every bug jump on you and you get sick today?
No.
No. So all of them have a period, right? So you have a host, receipt of an exposure to what? Where does it end?
When you're infected on the host.
Yeah, right? The disease for an individual wouldn't include that, but it might, okay? Either you no longer are symptomatic and it's no longer in you, alive in you, or you've infected. Okay, so you could have infected anywhere in here, but you get my point, okay? So you have the end of the disease. So I'm gonna call it the end of the life cycle. That make sense? All right, something I'm sure you remember. I do not think there's a slide. What's this? We talked about it from an environmental perspective, but just the web of color. What kind of triangle is this? It's your epidemiological triangle. You gotta have a host. You gotta have what else? An agent. And what's that third side?
Environment.
And you gotta have that environment. Just to keep it fresh in your mind, okay? As we talk about this. All right, stages of the infection. What are they?
Latent.
What happens first? Somebody just said it. The latent phase, okay. The latent phase, and it replicates during that period of time. And then that infection sheds, right? And then it can be what?
Symptomatic, sorry.
Then you start getting transmitted. It's when it can start being carried forth to other people, and they get sick. So making sure you're all clear that there's always a window called the latent phase, right? Is it the same for every bug?
No.
No. I'm just gonna put it there with no marker, because it's variable. All right? So there's that period before you're sick when you are infectious, right? All right, everybody's reflecting and remembering that good. Good. Then what comes next?
So we have latent, then we go to symptomatic, right?
Okay, so during that incubation period, you're now becoming what? Symptomatic. Those first stages of symptoms.
Okay.
Okay? So it's the time period between your initial contact and the infectious agent and the first appearance of the symptoms in the person. All right?
Wait, so that's the next stage, right? Or are you saying?
There can be some overlap. So you move from latency directly in to your incubation period, okay?
Okay, incubation.
Latency to communicable is the term that's used. Okay, so you're starting to be able to spread it, okay? Won't say that again, you look confused.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
confused.
And maybe it's because I wrote it here when it really should be post-receipt. Probably should be out here. That make more sense?
Okay. So
And there may be some little overlap, okay?
Okay.
You're getting and receiving it, and then you have this period of incubation.
Okay, that makes sense.
That's a better place to put it on perspective, by making it linear. Okay, now what happens after you're incubated and you start having symptoms?
You have the period of community.
Now you have a period of being sick. That's when you actually have your infection, okay? Then what happens?
Resolution.
Yeah, it moves on to either transmission or is resolved within the host, okay? So what does the term incidence mean?
New cases in a community.
Perfect, new cases. New cases. Incidents, okay? And then the outbreak is usually considered an unexpected occurrence of an infectious agent in a limited location, okay? For a limited period of time. If I use the term common source outbreak, what am I talking about?
Right, yeah.
It's the same bug, or sometimes you can even apply it to chemical exposures. Same substance, whatever it is for that population. Just what it says it is. All right, so I did have one of the chain of infection. This is just a refresher. Sounds like y'all all know this pretty well. Good. So this is the same thing, if you like it in a graphic format, in talking through what an infectious agent is, what your reservoir or your environment is. Some people can refer to this as a reservoir. portal of exit, it's gotta get out of folks, and it's gotta get back in. All right. Couple other terms, sounds like you know them. Pathogenicity.
Oh,
Got that one? You remember it? What is pathogenicity?
How diseases start.
How capable is that particular agent, bug, to produce an infectious disease? Okay? That's its, how about its infectivity? What does that mean?
How infectious it is.
The action of the agent invading the host and replicating. What is its virulence?
Jesus.
How sick they get. How virulent is how sick it makes them. The severity of the infection, that's the byproduct of the exposure. Okay? How sick are they gonna get? Toxicity.
How toxic.
Some of these agents cause toxicity within the body. Okay? Not all, but some. So it's the ability of the agent to produce toxins, actually produce a toxin in the body. Immunogenicity. The ability of the agent to produce specific immunity within the host. Remember, many of these bugs will actually then create immunogenicity within the actual host. What's an example? No.
I checked out.
The one we think about is chickenpox. Once you get it, right? Now, we'll talk about shingles because it creates another issue, but. Right, you usually, how many times you get chickenpox?
Once.
Typically, usually.
Once.
And invasiveness,
How to
the ability of the agent or the bug to actually destroy cells within the body, okay? So those are terminologies you should know. And you should know them so that you understand in your dialogue, discussions, questions, you understand what the question's asking, okay? So how do we stop transmission? This is part 2 if you like this methodology.
broken the chain.
Right. So we think of things that like an infection. We have to break that chain, right? So we think about things and we classify our infections in 2 ways. 1, community, meaning out and about, or 2, institutional. Okay? So pneumonia is the perfect example. We talk about it a lot. So if a patient receives from work a friend that gets him sick that then creates a pneumonia with a bacteria, and it's gotten out in the community, that's a community acquired pneumonia. Versus, what about your patient that's on the bed and on a ventilator, and then now they're aspirating and they get bugs in their lungs? That's an institutional within the confines of the healthcare system. So recognizing your agents, which ones are community acquired, is it agent specific? Are all certain bugs community and all certain bugs institutional? No. Okay. So it's the method and the location by which the host actually gathers or gets that particular infection. Okay, we're already talking about breaking it. We're gonna break the train. Let us stop here, because this is where I usually find students struggle a little bit. Let's take a quick 10-minute break, and we're gonna come back and talk about the things you do as nurses and healthcare providers to break that chain. Okay?